Welcome, everybody. So some of you know who I am, Cindy Lockhart. I'm the owner of Lockhart Wellness Solutions. Tonight, I'm hosting Kathryn Orme, who is my amazing assistant. And so I'm very happy that she is wanting to do a presentation on gut brain. So she is currently a nutrition and dietetic student at the University of Minnesota. And her desire is to become a functional nutritionist, and why we started working together as both work and mentoring opportunity. And some of her passion areas are gut health and also hormone balance. So this is perfect in regards to really sharing how the gut and the brain are directly connected. So if the gut's not working, our brain's not going to be functioning properly, and vice versa. So with that, I want to let you all know that Kathryn will be presenting for us tonight. So I'm going to be making her the host. We're going to keep everybody's video and audio off. So again, if you're just joining, please mute yourself if you can, because it looks like that I'm not able to do that on my side, just so that we have that opportunity to give Kathryn the full opportunity to share all of her expertise with us. And then at the end, when she's done, we are opening it up for a question and answer period. So then I'm gonna take over and will allow people to share their video, and you'll be able to speak to actually ask your questions live in person. And so at the bottom of your screen, if you hover at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see a little reactions. So it's like a smiley face, and you'll see a raise hand. So what I'd love to do, and so you can keep your video on or off. That's your choice at the end. But if you'd like to ask a question, I'm going to ask that you just use that reactions and raise your hand so that I can call on you, so that we keep it a little more organized, so we don't have a lot of people speaking over each other. So that's the housekeeping for this. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kathryn. Hang on one second. All right, Kathryn, you should be host.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. One second. Okay. I will be presenting on the gut-brain connection. So just an overview of what we're going to go through. We'll talk about what the gut-brain connection is, what impacts the gut-brain connection, how to optimize gut health for mental health, and then we'll have the Q&A at the end. And feel free to write down questions during my presentation if they come up, so that you'll remember them at the end. So first, what is the gut-brain connection? So before I get into exactly what it is, just want to go over the parts of the nervous system in the body. So there's a central and peripheral part of the nervous system. The central nervous system includes the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system includes nerves that branch out of the brain and spinal cord, forming the communication network between the brain, spinal cord, and body parts. So the gut-brain connection can be defined as a bidirectional communication network between the enteric and central nervous system. The enteric nervous system is part of the peripheral nervous system, and it controls the function of the GI tract. And then things that physically connect the gut and brain include the vagus nerve, autonomic nervous system, HPA axis, and nerves in the GI tract. So the vagus nerve is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the rest and digest state, the calm state. And this nerve controls many things such as heart rate, respiratory function, intestinal function, immune function, and it runs directly from the brain to the gut. And then the autonomic nervous system regulates involuntary bodily functions like breathing, blood pressure, and digestion. And then the HPA axis stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So this is the neuroendocrine link between our body's physiological response to stress and its perceived stress. So its main role is releasing glucocorticoids, which are steroid hormones, from the adrenal glands, and it activates short-term responses to stress, such as increased heart rate. So the brain can influence activity in the GI tract, and the gut can influence the mood, cognition, and overall mental health. So more about the gut-brain connection, as you can see on this image over here, the brain can impact things in the gut, such as motility, secretion, nutrient delivery, and microbial balance. And the gut can influence things in the brain, such as neurotransmitters, stress and anxiety, mood, and behavior. So mood disorders like anxiety and depression have been found to be linked to GI dysfunction. And then on the other end of that, GI diseases like irritable bowel syndrome are linked to psychological dysfunction. And there are many studies showing the connections between gut dysbiosis and depression. Gut dysbiosis would be like an imbalance in the bacteria in the gut. And the gut also provides 95% of the body's serotonin. And serotonin is a neurotransmitter that plays a role in mood, cognition, reward, learning, memory, and digestion. And psychological dysfunction can alter the gut microbiome very just a lot. So like even short periods of stress can impact the makeup of the gut microbiome. So there are 4 pathways in the gut-brain connection. The first 2 are neurologic and metabolic. So the neurologic pathway involves the vagus nerve, enteric nervous system, and activity of neurotransmitters in the GI tract. So an example of the neurologic pathway is that the nervous system influences immune activation in the gut. And then the metabolic pathway includes bacterial metabolites, such as short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids come from the fermentation of undigestible carbs in the GI tract. And the bacteria in our gut are what ferment the carbs to create the short-chain fatty acids. And these influence immunity, hormones, and nerve cells of the autonomic nervous system. And an example of the metabolic pathway in the human body, there are studies showing that irregularities in short-chain fatty acid metabolism are connected to the development of autism. And then the next 2 pathways are the immune and endocrine pathways. So the immune pathway, inflammation in the GI tract is influenced by the gut microbiome through the release of cytokines, which are like signalers to our cells from the immune system. And one example of the immune pathway at play in irritable bowel syndrome, gut dysbiosis, the imbalance in bacteria in the gut, activates immune responses, which increases gut permeability, which is like if you have high gut permeability, there are holes in your gut, which can allow harmful things into your gut and allow things out of your gut that shouldn't be leaving. In the endocrine pathway, gut bacteria impacts nutrient availability in the body, which influences the release of peptides from hormonal cells, which impacts the gut-brain axis. So one example of the endocrine pathway at play in the body, there's one neuropeptide called galanin, which stimulates the HPA axis that we talked about earlier, which is involved in the stress response. Galanin impacts the sleep and wake cycle, eating, mood, blood pressure, and stimulates cortisol secretion from the adrenals. Cortisol is also known as the stress hormone. Gut bacteria impact galanin, which impacts overall stress and mood, showing the endocrine as another important pathway of the gut-brain connection. And then gut bacteria and mental health are very connected. So gut bacteria can produce and regulate neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and glutamate. Certain strains of gut bacteria have been found to have a positive impact on mental health through their production of short-chain fatty acids, which I mentioned earlier, and regulation of amino acid and cortisol metabolism. Certain types of harmful bacteria present or lack of beneficial bacteria present in people with mental health issues have been found in studies to be possible targets for the prevention and treatment of mental health issues, such as anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and PTSD. Studies have also shown that individuals with anxiety and depression tend to have lower amounts of diversity in their gut bacteria and beneficial gut bacteria. One study on middle-aged adults found that the group who ate higher amounts of vegetables, fruits, and fiber had better mental health outcomes than those who ate less of those things. This is likely due to the improved gut health from eating more fruits, vegetables, and fibers, because these feed beneficial gut bacteria, which I will talk about more later. Now I'll talk about what impacts the gut-brain connection. So overall, the two main things that impact the gut-brain connection are the gut microbiome and psychological stress levels. So from the gut to the brain, the gut can impact the production, expression, and turnover of neurotransmitters. And then it can also impact the intestinal barrier and tight junction integrity in the gut. The gut also modulates enteric sensory afferents, which are in the body to detect mechanical and chemical stimuli from the intestine. They interact with smooth muscle cells, mucosal cells, blood vessels, and cells that regulate the immune response. The gut also impacts bacterial metabolites. So from the gut, short-chain fatty acids are produced. Like I mentioned before, they stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, mucosal serotonin release, and influence the memory and learning process. And then the gut also impacts mucosal immune regulation. In fact, about 70% of the body's immune cells are found in the gut. And then from the brain to the gut, the brain can alter mucus and biofilm production in the gut. Biofilm is a collection of microbes that stick to each other and to a surface. The brain also can impact the motility in the gut, as well as secretion of acid and the immune response in the gut. And then the brain can impact intestinal permeability in the gut, which, like I mentioned before, relates to if there's high permeability, there would be holes in the gut, allowing harmful pathogens into the gut and leaking things out of the gut that shouldn't be. So, in periods of high stress, this can usually lead to higher intestinal permeability. And then the brain can also alter the immune function in the gut. So the gut microbiome interacts locally within the gut with the intestinal cells, and then also interacts throughout the body with the central nervous system through hormonal and metabolic pathways. And studies have shown that psychological stressors modulate the composition of bacteria in the gut, even in short periods of time. It only takes about 2 hours of a social stressor to change the community of bacteria and reduce the proportions of the main beneficial bacteria in the gut. And gut microbiome alterations related to high stress have been found to stimulate the expression of virulent bacteria, which is harmful bacteria. And now I'll talk about how to optimize gut health for mental health. So first we'll talk about diet. It's important to have a diverse diet and to eat many different things daily instead of eating the same thing daily. One way to do this is to strive for a variety of colors using, you can think about the phytonutrient spectrum. Phytonutrients come from plants and provide many benefits for our body. The phytonutrient spectrum includes the colors green, yellow, orange, blue, purple, red, and white. And it's recommended to strive to eat 1 to 2 servings of each color daily. So I have some examples of each color to get you thinking. For green, asparagus, cucumber, broccoli, avocado, kale. For yellow, bell peppers, lemon, spaghetti squash. For orange, apricots, mango, sweet potato, carrots. For blue and purple, blueberries, blackberries, eggplants, dates, purple potatoes. And then for red, apples, cherries, tomatoes, and radishes. And for white, garlic, nuts, and onion. It's also important to get enough fiber, so aiming for 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day is recommended. It's also important to eat enough, which seems obvious, but sometimes is overlooked because our gut cannot function and brain cannot function without enough fuel. It's also important to limit processed foods and alcohol. Alcohol can break down gut lining and increase inflammation. And then it's important to hydrate with enough water and electrolytes. So for water, aiming for about half of your body weight in ounces per day is recommended. And then some ideas on getting electrolytes would be coconut water with pink salt, and then a few brands that we like, Element, Ultima, and Clean. And if you're struggling to think of meal ideas with a lot of color, Cindy's website has a lot of good ideas, some of which I came up with. And then talking about diet more, it's important to incorporate prebiotics and probiotics. So prebiotics encourage growth and activity of beneficial bacteria. They feed the beneficial bacteria in the gut, and they're found in plant foods, high fiber foods. Some examples of foods containing prebiotics would be artichokes, onion, garlic, leeks, asparagus, bananas, oats, apples, flax seeds, and jicama. And then probiotics contain beneficial live bacteria. They are used in order to maintain or improve the balance of beneficial bacteria in the gut. They can be taken in supplements, but they're also found in foods, including fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, tempeh, and kefir. It's also important to note that if you begin to implement more pre and probiotics and this causes uncomfortable symptoms in the gut, this could indicate a deeper bacterial imbalance in the gut. And this is where it would be good to work with a practitioner. And then it's also important to get short chain fatty acids because they are important for gut function and brain function. They're anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and antimicrobial. So they're, like I mentioned earlier, they're produced by gut microbes through the fermentation of non-digestible carbs. So they're used directly by cells in the colon, but also transported in the blood for use elsewhere in the body. So ways to get these would be eating high fiber foods, and then also a cool trick is to eat cooked and cooled starches to create resistant starch, which gets converted to short chain fatty acids in the body. So you could eat cooked and cooled potatoes or rice to increase short chain fatty acids. And then for mindfulness and lifestyle, taking a few deep belly breaths before eating to activate the rest and digest state is a good way to start because eating in a stressed out state makes it more difficult to absorb the nutrients from the food and is harder on our digestion. One thing I like to do before I eat is box breathing. So it's breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. And then avoiding screen time during eating is also important because screen time can put you in a stressed out state. And then for mindful eating, focusing on the food you're eating, how it tastes, how it smells, how it makes you feel. Also considering meditation or breath work throughout the day to maintain a relaxed state. And then it's important to prioritize sleep, quality and quantity, getting about 7 to 9 hours per night, and having the same bedtime and wake up time because circadian rhythm disruptions can also disrupt the gut microbiome. And then movement and exercise can help with gut motility and blood flow. Another way to optimize gut health is to support the vagus nerve. So you can stimulate this nerve through singing, humming, chanting, deep breathing, meditation, gargling, and cold exposure. For cold exposure, you can place a cold compress on the back of your neck or on your chest because that's where the vagus nerve is. And then you can also take a cold shower, cold plunge, or ice your face. I personally like humming to stimulate the vagus nerve. I actually did that before this presentation to try to relax. And I also like icing my face a lot. But it's just important to find practices that work for you so you can stay consistent with them. And then eating hygiene. So chewing food thoroughly and slowly is important because our stomach does not have teeth, so it makes it a lot harder to break down our food if it's not chewed properly before getting to our stomach. And then it's important to avoid eating in a rush because this can disrupt blood sugar, cause stress, impair digestion, cause uncomfortable bloating, impair nutrient absorption, impair gut motility, so how the food moves through our gut, and can overall reduce the enjoyment of eating. It's also important to space out meals every 3 to 5 hours if you can, to give your gut a break because it shouldn't be digesting food all day. And then another important thing would be avoiding late night eating to give the gut a break and to avoid sleep disruption. So not eating within a few hours of bedtime is recommended because we want our bodies to focus on sleeping and not digesting. Our digestion is best and strongest in the first half of the day, so eating bigger meals in the first half and smaller in the last half is recommended because digestion aligns with circadian rhythm. And this is where intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating can be important components for gut microbiome and digestion if they work for you. And then lastly, supplements for gut health. So there's a lot of general things you can do, but it is best to test in order to tailor supplements to your specific needs, and working with a practitioner for specific recommendations and plans is important. But generally, L-glutamine and aloe vera juice can help with leaky gut, which is the increased intestinal permeability. But it is important to note that you should not oversupplement with L-glutamine because it is a preferred fuel for cancer cells. But it can be helpful short term. Ginger and fish oil can help with inflammation. Probiotics, like I mentioned before, can help with maintaining a healthy gut microbiome. Magnesium citrate can be used for constipation. A popular product with magnesium citrate is Calm powder, which you can find in most stores and on Amazon. And then bitter elixir to help with stomach acid production and digestion. This usually uses different kinds of herbs to stimulate stomach acid production and help with breaking down food. So like I said, there's many things to do in general for supplements, but it's important to get specific recommendations from your practitioner. And that's it. So I will hand it back over to Cindy for the Q&A. I think you're the host now, Cindy.
All right. One second. Perfect. Well, that was a wonderful presentation, Kathryn. Really comprehensive and really kind of covered everything from start to finish. So that the understanding of how our gut and our brain are connected, and then how do we practically implement some nutritional lifestyle modifications to support. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to allow everybody to share their screen if you choose, and you can unmute yourself. Let me see. So hopefully you guys can do that. So you can do it on your side. Oop, here we go. Start video. There we are. I see Patty. Perfect. Ah, there we go. Wonderful. Hi, Anita. Hi, TJ. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Marnay. Wonderful. So we've got a few people on. So again, feel free to share your screen. And then on the bottom, like if you just hover on the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little smiley face that says reactions. What I'd like to do is just invite you to click raise your hand so that we keep the questions a little more controlled. And Tyra, thank you for your wonderful chats. That was fun to see your engagement. Patty, question.
Um, I was wondering, you talked about tests, having tests to determine what supplements you should use, and what are the types of tests that are used to determine that?
Like a stool test or a Dutch test for your hormones. But for gut stuff, like a stool test is the main one. I don't know if
Okay.
there's any other that you can think of, Cindy.
I think for the topic tonight, that would be our most comprehensive.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm just coming off of a virus, so my voice is not quite mine. But with a stool analysis, it gives you a comprehensive overview of how well you're digesting, how, like Kathryn mentioned, the intestinal barrier, like is it leaky, is it hyperpermeable? So you get a feel for what that is. You actually get to see your microbiome, so are there potential pathogens and overgrowth? How's the commensal bacteria? So the healthy, so what's that balance? How diverse is it? So it gives us a lot more data as to what's happening in your gut so that we can better tailor and target what a good supplement and also, more targeted nutrition and lifestyle plan. Anita and TJ.
Hi, thank you, Catherine. That was lovely. I really did appreciate a lot of it was new and some of it was really supporting what we're doing. So that was really nice to see. I just have one question about you mentioned a powder with L-glutamine and I didn't hear what that was. Did you say that there was something to take with L-glutamine, a powder or something that was
Oh,
available in stores?
oh, the magnesium citrate powder maybe is what I think I
I
meant.
thought I thought it sounded like coal or corn or some kind of powder that maybe I misheard. I don't know.
I think, was it mentioning, I think she had glutamine and aloe vera
Yeah,
in the same
aloe
line. Is that
vera.
what you're thinking?
I
No?
must have missed it. I must have missed it. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't think she mentioned like a specific powder, but she was just mentioning the aloe and glutamine can be beneficial for the intestinal barrier.
Okay. That sounds right. I thought she said when you take L-glutamine, there's also a powder or something, but or maybe she just said in powder form. My bad. Thank you. Great
Okay.
presentation.
I'm trying to
Thank you.
remember. Kathryn, do you mention something about that?
I don't remember saying a powder for L-glutamine. I do remember saying it for magnesium. I don't know if anyone else can remember.
Because there
It's
there
okay.
are
Yeah.
so TJ, there are a lot of powders that are synergistic for intestinal barriers, like GI Revive, GI
Ah,
Integrity. So they're more synergistic in regards to like aloe and marshmallow and glutamine and some other factors that really support a healthy intestinal barrier. So that
good.
might be what you're alluding to.
It's possible. I just my ears just perked up because we are doing a L-glutamine cocktail every night, and it is a powder, and we use a uh, uh, different biotics like biotic 7 and that goes in it too. But we switch off every month. And I thought, well, if this is another powder, maybe that's something that could go with it, but it's okay. That's I'll take all that I got. Thank you.
Awesome. And Tyra, I saw that you chatted, but Marnay, go ahead if you have a question.
Yeah, my question was, did she say that the L-glutamine is good for the cancer? Was that what she said for the gut? There was one supplement that she suggested is good for fighting against cancer.
The L-glutamine helps with intestinal permeability, but having like too much is not good because it can be a cancer fuel. It can like
Okay.
help cancer grow. So just it's like more for short-term use.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a preferred fuel for the intestinal cells, but also a preferred fuel for cancer cells. So just not wanting to overdo.
And how do you know? You know, because I had taken the L-glutamine and I haven't now for a long time, but I was just wondering, I mean, is it best, like, how often should you do the stool test, put it that way, so that you know if you're, you know, need it again, if I would need it again?
Kathryn, do you have any suggestion?
That's a good question. I am not sure about that. I don't know if you know, Cindy.
Yeah, I think it's dependent on where you are when you do your first stool analyses. I typically don't retest people any sooner than 6 months. A lot of times it's every 12 months where we would just see. But your intestinal barrier is only one cell deep. It's really fragile, so it's very easy to break it down. So it's, you know, we can just assume that it's going to be more leaky in most case scenarios. So I tend to like cycle people through like with the glutamine kind of synergistic powder once a quarter. I think is a safe way to do it. Like go through one container once a quarter. And then Tyra, let me get your question.
I think we answered it.
Yeah, it's okay. So did we get your question answered, Tyra? Yep, doing it. Okay. So same question in regards to the cancer. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Your audio
okay.
works.
All right. Thank you. I was going to ask real quick if it's okay about the Himalayan, is it Himalayan pink salts that you would put in the coconut water?
Yeah.
And then the sugar content in the coconut water, that's just fine for your gut, right?
In my opinion, I think it's fine if you get that with like just coconut in it, not like a bunch of other ingredients.
Right.
Yeah.
But
What
the Himalayan pink salts, that sort of helps with the hydration of the gut.
It has sodium and minerals to help. So like the coconut water has the potassium, but then the salt has the other electrolytes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions, and people that decided not to put their video on, feel free to put a question in chat. If you do have a question that you'd like answered. I know not everybody's video is on. Oh, Sandy, hello.
Hello. Hi, Kathryn. I just had a quick question regarding the box breathing you were talking about. Do you just do one repetition of that, or how many do you do before you have a meal?
I like to do like 3 or 4,
Okay.
just so it doesn't take a ton of time, but it still gets you into more relaxed state.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you.
Other questions? Patty.
So when you were talking about the rainbow of colors, and it was helpful to hear examples of those foods, but thinking about 1 to 2 servings of each of those colors, I was trying to envision how I would do that. That would be an increase in what I do. And is it really about finding good recipes that have a bunch of those mixed together, so at one meal you've combined a lot of those things together? Is that kind of how you approach it?
Yeah, that's how Cindy has helped me to approach it too. Like including a few, like 2 or 3 at least, like per meal. And then you have a mixture, like good salads or like veggie bowls. And then like if you're snacking too, to include at least one. And then by that point you get up to that number pretty easily.
Thank you.
Well, that's a good question for everybody. Like, how do you feel like you are all doing with the rainbow? We tend to have a couple categories that we're doing really good at, and then there's at least one color or two colored groups where never touch it. How do you guys think you're doing?
This is definitely an opportunity to improve.
Great. Any other questions?
I don't know how to raise my hand down there, but I really loved how you pointed out, it's amazing the connection between stress and digestion and your microbiome, gut health with just 2 hours, how that can throw off your gut. That's really neat to know as far as stress management.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can probably all think of times that we were stressed out and felt like our stomach being upset. That always happens to me. So
Right, yeah. So I really appreciated that. So thank you.
yeah, no problem.
So what was it? I'll have to ask, like just kind of following up to what you learned from Kathryn today, what was a big takeaway for you in regards to, I didn't know that before, or this has inspired me now to take this tip and implement it into my own nutrition and lifestyle? iPhone 2 raised your hand. So whoever that is.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Barb.
Hi,
Sorry.
Barb.
I just had a quick question. In regard to aloe vera, I know that's soothing for the stomach, but there's also concern about it being carcinogenic. So how do you approach that? Like how much would you want to limit that? Or is that kind of like L-glutamine? You want to use it short term or what?
I have heard similar to L-glutamine to like cycling it, but Cindy, do
Okay.
you know better?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. I have not necessarily heard the connection of aloe and cancer. I think what I've seen clinically, most people using aloe 4 is to really help with elimination and softening the stool. So hopefully you wouldn't
Okay.
that long term. 'Cause
Okay.
if somebody's having trouble with that, there's usually a reason why. So really good question. And I think, if we're reliant on something, that's often telling us that we might be missing something.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't heard of it for that use, and I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Thank you.
Anita and TJ.
Well, I wanted to make a comment about the veggies because we've been doing the reset fast for anybody who knows what that is in this group for quite a while now. And we really have changed the idea of what vegetables are for. I grew up thinking that the biggest thing about vegetables was they had fewer calories, so you wouldn't get fat and you could have all you wanted, but they never tasted good. It was always punitive and and I never looked at vegetables as a, say, like you'd look at a cupcake, for instance, as something tasty in its own right. And over the course of doing the fast for a while now and hearing again and again how the rainbow is the way to go, I realized that we both have watched each other change from doing this because it's good for us to this is enjoyable. You could have a cup of vegetables or half a cup even, and just have them by himself or put a little salt on them, and they are tasty and they're fuel, and they let you do things and they feel good, and then we've also been finding recipes for vegetables, and it's fun, just like you find a new recipe for some kind of meat or something. Well, braised leeks, for instance, are delicious. And that what's also changed is that it's a worthy thing to include into our lives, to give them time and invest in them, get the best vegetables. You know, our organic local vegetables are really, honestly, bona fide, tasty, and it isn't about getting the cheapest thing and shoving them in so that you know, so that you're being healthy, because we won't do it if it's not enjoyable. It won't last. Yeah, if it doesn't taste good and we look forward to it. And we have been developing that over time, and we're old enough that that's pretty much a miracle by now, you know, to change lifetime eating habits and go, we like it. We always have a veggie tray in our refrigerator, you know, a round one, and have the rainbow in it, and are amazed as time goes on how sweet a sweet pepper is, you know, and how or carrot, and just how the tastes are good and they don't need a bunch of junk on top of them. So you know, we're sharing. My other question is, my other thing is that I think over time, you know, give it a chance, that vegetables aren't just good for you. That's not fair to vegetables, maybe. So the first part of the presentation, there was so much technical stuff, you know, that sounded really interesting about, I can't remember the terms, you know, endocrine system and the, you know, what all that stuff. I wondered if you could recommend any literature for the layman to be able to get more familiar with the things in the first part of the presentation. You know, because I'd like to know about all that stuff, but I don't want to become, I don't want to put the time in that you're putting in to learn. So what you're doing, and Kathryn. So is there any book that would also, and would you also go over Eat the Cook and Cooled Starches? For what purpose is that? Thanks.
Yes, that's good feedback for me too, because I was trying to simplify it to make people understand it. So that's good feedback.
It's just a lot in a short amount of
Yeah,
time.
it is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
First, for the cooked and cooled starches, those are to increase short chain fatty acids, which help with gut health and brain health. So if you cook like oats or rice or potatoes and cool them and then eat them, they get converted to short chain fatty acids in your gut.
So go ahead and cool them a little bit before you eat them, maybe, right?
Mhm.
If
Yeah,
you
like
can
put
have
them
it
in the
with other
fridge
things.
for a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Thanks.
in terms of different resources,
Yeah.
I haven't found any books that are like simple. I don't know, Cindy, if you have any good, or like handouts maybe.
I don't necessarily have a handout on gut brain. I think I can get back with you. Like when I send out the video link, I think I do have one on gut health. I just have to see if it's correlated with the brain as well. So let me check on that, and we can follow up in regards to the video link and some resources for you. And then I just want to reiterate what Kathryn was saying with the resistant starch options. So the potatoes or the rice, really important that it's white. So white potatoes, white rice, and that you're eating it cooled. So you're not reheating, because when you reheat, you break down that resistant starch. You need to eat it cold. Okay. Sarah's like, oh no. So that's a good way. Like if you've ever made a Buddha bowl, like a bowl where you have leftovers and you put a protein, you put your different vegetables, you could put one of those starches, like a cooled potato or cooled rice. It works really nice.
And white rice over brown rice, or?
You're going to get more resistant starch from the white.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in this case, so what Kathryn was talking about, this is more of your therapeutic effects of the short chain fatty acids. So
Oh, wow.
different than like nutritionally, you would want to go more with the wild rice. or, you know, something that's deeper, or like a yam or sweet potato, you know, for more nutritional value. But this is different. So this is to actually build up that resistant starch. So it does need to be white,
Okay.
cooked and cooled and eaten cooled.
Mhm.
And then I apologize, I phoned too. What was your name again? I think you had your hand up.
Oh, Barb,
That's Barb.
you have your
Okay, so
hand
Barb,
up?
I think, did you have another question?
Okay.
No, okay, okay. So any other comments or questions? Yes.
I have none.
Everybody? Oh, I just wanted to say that the vagus nerve is like it's like almost a trend now. I've been seeing it on Facebook and right and also do you have any recommendations about how to explore that more? I just thought it was really fun to think your nutrition, you know, can be improved by singing and humming and you know chanting. And the other things you said, that is there anything way we could explore that more? And it's just good for what? It's good for
The vagus nerve, it helps you switch into the parasympathetic state, like the
Oh,
rest
yeah.
and digest state.
Okay.
For resources, I can look into that and get back to you. Like if you want maybe different books or websites or something.
Can add a few of those resources as a follow-up to this call. So Kathryn and I will kind of put our heads together and find some good resources. But yeah, think about the vagus nerve. I know it's kind of like a trendy thing right now, but it's the longest cranial nerve in your body. And so as Kathryn mentioned, it's connecting your gut to your brain. So when we talk gut brain, we have to talk vagus nerve. So it's super important. And so when you think about the nervous system, you've got the sympathetic nervous system and you've got the parasympathetic. I always liken it to keep it really simple as like the accelerator and the brake. And so if you think about our lives, we're constantly hitting the accelerator, you know, from the time that we get out of bed to the time we go to bed. And so we have to consciously and intentionally hit the brake. And so one of the breaks is going to be what Kathryn shared in regards to how do I activate and stimulate my vagus nerve. And so with the chanting and the humming and the cold therapy, like the chanting and the humming and the singing, the louder, the better. So you want to go gargling, almost aggressive gargling. Like that is going to really stimulate the vagus nerve. So don't go gently, go all in when you do that. How many have cold plunged? Ah, a couple. So, and you don't have to do the full cold plunge. That's where like Kathryn gave you an idea. Like put a cold pack on your neck or on your chest, or at the end of your shower, take a cold shower, and maybe you start cool, and then you go cold as you get comfortable with it, or splashing cold water on your face, or Kathryn goes to the point of ice. You know, so you know, ease into it versus being afraid to do that, because it is crazy how you actually feel that relaxation effect after you do that. You think it's going to be the opposite. Renee.
So my question is then, when you do that, my dog is here now making noise, but when you do that, stimulate it, is that supposed to be before you eat, or can it be any time of the day? Is that when you're supposed to do it, or and how often are you supposed to do it? Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful to do it before you eat for sure, because then you're eating in a more relaxed state, so that's going to help your digestion and absorption. And then in terms of like doing it throughout the day, it's good to do throughout the day for sure. I think it's more about like what can you consistently commit to doing and like what feels best for you. I don't think there's really like an exact number. It's just what works for you. Maybe like once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once at night, or once before every meal, whatever works for you.
And it's really fun when you have other people at your home, when you come in singing and humming and currently really loud. It gives a sense of entertainment.
That's why I'll do the ice. They don't want to hear me singing and humming.
Mine either, Marnie, but I'm just like, hey, this is for my health.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to deal with that. Awesome. Well, good. Hopefully you guys had some really good takeaways from today. Kathryn, again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise in this area. And we will follow up. So I'll probably send it out tomorrow because that way Kathryn and I can connect and come up with a few additional resources that might be nice for you on the gut brain as well as the vagus nerve. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our next education.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so
Great night,
much.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very